love that course.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it a little bit after the tournament. I don't know how much in depth you guys have gone with the course design on it, but for being on a golf course, it was a pretty gosh darn good course.
Yeah, I mean, we talked through it a little bit on Grip Lock, not too much like specifically about the course design, but more so it didn't it felt like you were watching a golf course because you were, but it didn't in a lot of ways the shots that you guys were throwing and like the shots we were watching y'all throw didn't feel like we were watching a golf course, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I thought they did a great job in that aspect, and I put a poll out on Twitter because I saw some people complaining about it. It seems that the number one complaint, which was fair, but it's not really the course designer's fault, was just that on coverage, it was at times tough to know where you were going. Like it was tough because you couldn't exactly like see the basket down the fairway, or like you're
Mhm.
landing in a fairway, so it's tough to know if you're going straight or going across or stuff like that. That seemed to be the
We
only
were
real
also
complaint, but
Well, yeah, and to that point, one of the reasons why it didn't feel like we were on a golf course was because very few times, if any, we were ever throwing down a fairway.
yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
so we were throwing across fairways. So I can definitely see how that can be very difficult to see. And here's what I will say, and this will always be a topic of debate on whether you like it or not. And I think this actually helps viewers at home visualize the whole
Hmm.
is we're not going to be able to go like OTB is not going to be able to go to that golf course, and the course designer Sean is not going to be able to say like, hey, we are going to control the grass length
Yeah,
at this golf course.
yeah, we
That's
talked
never
about
going
that.
to
Yeah,
happen. So the only way for them to really give the viewers at home a good idea of the whole shape is for there to be like flags or poles or some sort of something lining the kind of the intended fairway.
yeah.
And I will say, talking about out of bounds, I think not out of bounds. I think this course needed lots of hazard.
Mm.
It's a penalty. It's a tool that is often never used, but for a course like this, I think hazard is really what it needed because there are several holes where there is a very aggressive shot that can, whether it be a roller or a huge like sky Annie flex shot that you can get massive distance on. And if you get your angle off or anything like that, you're not really too worried because you're still going to be really far out there and you'll just figure it out once you get up to your disc.
Yeah.
I think this is where hazard could have been really useful to one, identify the intended fairways that they wanted you to take. And so people watching at home could be like, oh, okay, I can see, the fairway and where they need to go. But then also, if you do want to get aggressive and you do want to throw a roller, like hole 5, for example, the par 5, that's like 1,000 feet and you kind of cross 3 holes. So you go across 3 different fairways.
Hmm.
A lot of people were going roller on their second shot. Some people are even going roller on their first shot. There, I love hazard.
Yeah.
That's like, let's just say like 100 feet wide, 150 feet wide. And that way, if you do want to get aggressive and your roller ends up flipping too much and just starts sailing down the fairway, you don't bring it all the way back into the fairway and throw your third shot there.
Mm.
You throw your third shot from way, 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 way far away.
I
And
gotcha.
I think that eliminates a lot of these kind of throws that, ultimately a lot of people don't like seeing where it's just doing it as far as you can and
Mm.
there's no real risk. And also that will give an advantage to the guy that can throw 450 feet consistently and accurately versus the person that can only throw 400 feet but can throw a 600-foot roller and they're just launching rollers on these holes
Yeah.
because they
So you're almost advocating for on this course in particular, instead of OB on some holes having hazard and not necessarily adding hazard,
yes
correct? Yeah, I
yeah
definitely think that
add
that's
hazard
something that's something
let
that
let because I want to punish people. Like obviously if you miss the fairway, right, and you
yeah.
don't land, let's say it's 100, let's say it's 200 feet wide. If you can't throw a 450-foot shot into a 100-foot wide spot, that was a bad shot,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And you should get penalized. So if you miss by 5 feet, you should get penalized. Now, should you get penalized just as much as the person that misses by 250 feet? That's why I like hazard, because the person that misses by 5 feet, you're still pretty close to the fairway, the intended line. So you still should have some sort of shot into green for your second, or if it's a par 5, you still should get up the fairway. But if you throw a roller that just doesn't work and you go way down, like you are now should be scrambling and having to throw a really, really hard next shot way down there versus you and the guy that missed by 5 feet are throwing from the same exact
The
spot.
same shot. Yeah, that's something I haven't really thought about. I've definitely thought through like the usage of hazard on golf courses, but more so like they've used them on bunkers and stuff like that, or like certain areas. But definitely on golf courses, I think specifically it makes a lot of sense on a way to kind of make them slightly more difficult and eliminate some of that just, spray and pray, chuck it as far as you can aspect, because then you do have to worry not just about going OB, but how far you're going OB. And that's definitely something that on a golf course could change the way everything plays.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit too, if we want to get into a little bit on like, I love talking about the last stretch of holes on these
Yeah.
courses, because I'm starting to see the trend that we all want, where it's like the last stretch of holes aren't just gimmies.
Yeah.
So if you have a 1-shot, 2-shot lead, you're not just like, oh, well, that person's going to win.
Yeah, it's over. Yeah.
And this course had a lot of teeth, starting on hole 15, going hole 16. That was kind of one of the worst holes on the course, to be fair. But hole 15, incredible hole. Hole 17, incredible hole. Hole 18, incredible hole. And I don't know how familiar. Do you remember the course pretty well, I guess? Or do you
Semi well, yeah. The whole exact holes I don't fully know.
So hole 17 is the one with all the water, peninsula green.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So like that hole, for example, I think to make that hole incredible, you make a hazard left. So where the basket is, right up there on that little peninsula, there's a huge landing area all left there.
Yeah.
Right. You make all of that hazard pretty much, and you almost make it like an island green, if you will. And again, it's a hazard, so you don't have to have like all this weird stuff of like, where do you go for a drop zone? Because then I hate drop zones on par 4s, right?
Yeah.
So you just continue to play where your shot ends up. That kind of eliminates all this like OB kind of island stuff. But you make all that you figure out how big you want the green it to be, and then you make everything else hazard. Because what some people were doing is they were playing that hole just for a par. And if you're playing that hole for a par, it wasn't very difficult. You would just throw your tee shot out somewhere. Then you just chuck a hyzer anywhere out into that huge landing zone.
Yeah.
And then you throw like a little 150-foot shot, up shot, and then you tap in for par and move. The people that are going for birdies, those were the only people that really actually took big numbers, because they would throw the big second shot hyzer out over the water.
Yeah.
And it would never come back in. And so now they're almost left with the same exact shot, right? And so that's where I think the hazard play there, that would almost initiate people being aggressive. Like you have to be.
It makes you challenge the water. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't really give you another option.
Because I didn't get to see it, but I saw, like, I didn't watch coverage, but I kind of was paying attention a little bit. I'm assuming Natalie went for it first and threw it in the water, and then did Paige just throw a shot kind of to the landing zone that I'm talking about?
I believe
she knew
so.
that.
I believe that was the order it happened. Natalie definitely went aggressive, and that's what ended up costing her. But it's hard to blame a player for losing a tournament by trying to win it versus just
no. What I'm saying though is like,
the commentators were doing that. The commentators were saying that's the wrong play. Got to think, just take a 4 there and put the pressure on Paige. But I'm like,
no.
I like a player losing trying to win versus a player losing trying not to lose. So, but yeah, that's what ended up happening. She went aggressive for the green and ended up in that water.
Yeah, and that's where I think if you make hazard, Paige now doesn't just have like the easy like, oh, I'm just gonna chip and make a par.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
She's forced to actually have to
play some golf.
Throw a shot into that hole 17. And then hole 18 was an incredible finishing hole. Such a good hole.
Yeah.
Like probably one of the better holes we've played on tour this year.
Oh wow, that's high praise. Nice. Yeah, I mean, it came across like it definitely made it exciting. Like even for MPO, I mean, for FPO, obviously it came down to the wire when you thought it was going to be a blowout, and then for MPO, towards the end, it gotten to where if you felt like there was no way Simon should lose, but there was still enough. There wasn't a big enough gap that you were like 100% comfortable ever, because there was still enough holes ahead until we were like on 18 with, I think he had like close to a 4-stroke lead at that point. Until we were there, it didn't feel comfortable because you knew you're like 2 mistakes away and it's right back tied.
I would say you would need 3 strokes on 18 to.
Yeah.
2 strokes is not enough because it's very easy to bogey that. Like even if you're trying to play that hole for par, it's not easy, which I think is what makes it an awesome hole. And that's the only reason I was saying 17 is if you play 17 for par, it's a pretty easy hole.
Yeah.
But 18 is anything but that. So, you know, two shots, you could easily bogey that hole, and then the person you're going up against birdie it, and all of a sudden you're in a playoff.